Hello, welcome to the Center for Parenting Education and the second part of our webcast called Coping with Sibling Rivalry, in which we'll discuss what factors influence sibling rivalry. Being aware of these can help you to be more understanding about the sibling relationship and can help you respond in more sensitive ways to the sibling issues that arise in your home. The first factor that we'll look at is birth order. The birth order of each of our children has an impact on them individually as well as on the sibling relationship. As you probably know, studies show that different birth orders carry with them their own characteristic response patterns because of their different experiences in their families and how they were treated.
Firstborns tend to be perfectionistic, reliable, responsible, well-organized, and serious. Secondborns, or middles, tend to be mediators, avoid conflict, independent, extremely loyal to their peer group, have many friends, and are more likely to be mavericks. While the youngest can be manipulative, charming, tend not to take responsibility for their actions, tend to be people persons, and often use humor to their advantage.
Remember that this is not an exact or a hard science and that not all children fit these expected characteristics, but it can be interesting to see how much or how little your children match the stereotype. Each birth order has its advantages and disadvantages, and no one position is really better than any other. Knowing this can help parents be more empathic if and when their children complain about what they see as the disadvantages of their particular birth order. Sometimes the sibling position that a parent had in the family in which he grew up may impact how they relate to their own children's sibling positions. For example, a father may have difficulty being sympathetic to his younger children if he felt, as the oldest in his family, that he had the burden of caring for his carefree younger siblings. Many other factors besides birth order influence the sibling relationship. Being aware of these can help you to understand what's going on and can give you ideas for how best to manage any rivalry, fighting, or jealousy.
The first is spacing among siblings. Siblings who are closely spaced have high access to one another and are more likely to be physical with one another. Siblings who are spaced further apart have less access to one another, and are less competitive because they tend to have more of their independent lives from one another rather than overlapping.
The next factor is temperamental differences. Siblings who are temperamentally easy may be treated differently by parents than siblings who are difficult. Temperamentally easy children tend to be liked more and have an easier time of things. Also, children with more challenging temperaments may annoy their siblings more. And if there are differences in how parents react to these children depending on their temperament, this could increase the intensity of sibling rivalry.
Gender. In certain families, a child of one sex or the other may be preferred. If the child of the opposite sex is born, that child may grow up the recipient of such messages as, "We wish you were a boy instead of a girl." Such messages can influence how that child relates to the other siblings and can increase sibling rivalry.
The next factor is physical influences. Hunger, fatigue, illness, and developmental disequilibrium can also affect siblings' relationships.
Another factor is the parenting style and family ambiance. Families that respect individual needs, treat children as unique and special people, and encourage their connection to the family will help to promote high self-esteem in the children. This, in turn, has an impact on their relationships with each other. There will be less need to compete for love, attention, or respect.
Another factor are transitional times. Sibling issues come up at each developmental and family milestone, such as the birth of a new baby, when a baby becomes mobile, when a sibling goes off to school, when a sibling leaves the family for college or to marry, if there is a divorce or a remarriage in the family, and many more situations that arise in families. When there's more stress and tension, sibling rivalry may increase.
And finally, the family circumstances in which a sibling grows up affects the sibling relationship. Situational differences in the family as each sibling grows up affects the relationship, such as the finances of the family at any given time, which parents worked and when, who was in charge of the children, where the family lived, and the nature of the parents' relationship at the time each sibling was growing up.
In addition to these factors, there is also the stages of sibling rivalry. The ages of your children will affect the degree and type of rivalry between them. It can feel like the sibling rivalry between your children is an ongoing and never-changing situation and that it will never improve. Actually, the good news is that sibling rivalry is affected by the ages of the children, and it does change as children enter different developmental stages and levels of maturity. This means that parents need to be flexible in responding to the conflicts that arise.
For preschoolers, it's a dog-eat-dog period in which there is lots of fighting, and parents have to be there to intervene frequently. For young, school-age children, adherence to the rule, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or tit for tat, and parents have to intervene less. As children grow, for older school-age children, the law and order stage prevails, where children use rules to ensure fairness and protect against cheating. Parents have to intervene even less. And finally, high school and beyond. The child begins to develop an adult conscience and to feel that it is not right to exploit a sibling. They can use their conflict resolution techniques on their own if they've been taught them all along.
As a summary of this article, here are some tips to help you manage the rivalry that occurs in your home. Use your knowledge of birth order to understand each of your children's positions and feelings. Help them to see the advantages of each of their positions. Consider the other factors. Remember that fair does not always mean equal. Also, consider the other factors that influence the sibling relationships so that you can be more understanding of your children's experiences and perhaps use this knowledge to mitigate the rivalry. Remain hopeful and optimistic by remembering that some sibling rivalry is inevitable and that as children mature and learn ways to handle conflicts, the rivalry will usually subside. Thank you for joining us. For more information about ways to understand and manage your children's relationship and their possible fighting, you can listen to parts 1 and 3 of our Sibling Rivalry podcast.